like and subscribe. Now, what did a school teacher say that stuck with you? Have I been respectful to you? Me? Well, yeah. Are you being respectful to me? Simple words. They have guided me so much. Ended every class with "you're good people." My algebra teacher ends every class with "have a good day. Be nice to people." Such a small thing, but it's sweet. Biology teacher, pointing at student, ugly bag of protein, full of water. I feel like this is a Star Trek, TNG reference. One day in 7th grade our principal came into the homeroom class and wrote on the board 19.32 in big numbers. He got our attention and announced to the class, "This," pointing at the number, "is what you are worth. Every day you come to class, the school gets $19.32 from the state for each of you. So if you are sick, you should still come to class, go to the nurse, and get sent home. That way the school will still get its $19.32. That was the day I stopped caring about school. I'm pretty sure he was trying to increase attendance and believed what he said was positive. But when a person you're supposed to respect tells you you're worth less than a $20 bill, yeah, I thought it was gonna be something like 19.32. That's what you are worth to the state. Every day you come to school, that's how much they pay the schools. When you get out to here and have the real world to deal with, I want you to remember something. Schools have to take what the state thinks you're worth, but you don't. I want you to prove the state is full of money isn't everything, but every day you accept less than 19.32. No, you can do better. I know what it is to be young, but you don't know what it is to be old. I don't know why and how it came up, but our English teacher asked me if I understand that. It was the first year, and I was 10. And I definitely did not understand. But it somehow stuck in my mind as the sound of the sentence, until I could decipher the memory in retrospect. As my dad said, I have been 17. You haven't been 50 inches. And my brain still thinks I'm 18. Getting old sucks, but it's better than the alternative, a parental variation, that I've said to my kids when I seem confused, distracted, frustrated, or on edge. Remember that I, as a parent, have to keep track of several people simultaneously and provide for them, and I have to do that while anticipating the future and dealing with the consequences of the past. You, as a kid, are only responsible for yourself, for the most part. I once asked my teacher something about the subject, and she said, "I don't know, but I'll do some research and get back to you tomorrow." I'm studying to be a teacher, and one of my teachers told us there is no shame in admitting to your students that you don't know something. However, you should look it up to answer it next time you see them, and be prepared for the next time you get asked that. "Excuse me, miss, this class on the effects of illegal substances is really interesting, but is it true marijuana makes you really hungry?" First day of science class. Many of the topics I will be teaching you this year will likely be proven false throughout your life. I love teachers that are honest with students. Simply saying something like "you'll never need to know this, but it's part of the exam, so we have to" is so much more likely to get me to learn something than just saying it's important. Sounds like an ace teacher. I always enjoyed the teachers with real vision. Openly acknowledging a changing world really sets up your students up for better success by showing flexibility. Once you're an adult, you choose your own fate. Your mom won't control you anymore. This came from a 9th grade Algebra 1 teacher who took the time to tutor me. My mom was / is a anti-vaxxing, cult-following nutbag who didn't think school was important because Armageddon is coming. I was terrible at math until I met him. It's been 25 years and I think of this teacher still. I'm grateful. Don't talk to mom anymore. She got tired of me asking where Armageddon was. You're a spoon and a knife block when asked why most of my friends were high achievers and I was only average. Ever tried to eat ice cream with a knife? You're useful in your own way, bro, keep it up. Or I guess it was their way of telling you that soon you'll find your place and excel in that spot. I'm FB friends with several of my old teachers. I once wrote about how I had the recurring nightmare of being in my chemistry teacher's class and having to take an exam, but not having studied for it. He replied saying that his recurring nightmare is my being in his class. He should just sent you a study guide for one of his exams. Maximum sass. I think he retired about 20 years ago. Just get a fine haircut. I kept complaining during PE that my hair was in my face. This was one of those teachers that felt more like one of the boys than the teacher. Blew my mind hearing him swear. We had a teacher like that who thought he was one of the boys. He ended up getting an ex-student pregnant once she left. He was in his late 50s while she was 19. Teachers like marking your homework as much as you like doing homework. Why I don't assign it anymore. More than half the kids don't do it. The rest copy it. And about 3 smart kids do it themselves. And they don't really need to. About 3 smart kids do it themselves. And they don't really need to. When I was a kid there was a guy in my class who always aced tests and got constant good contribution in class. Very clearly smart and always understood everything that was being taught. His grades at the end of the year were always very average though, because he couldn't be effed to do homework and that ruined his report card. Not because he didn't understand, but because it was literally a pointless waste of time. So, just don't do the homework. Makes life easier for everybody. Can't argue with that logic. We should help each other out and cancel homework then. You have unlimited potential when you know how to find the first step. My geometry teacher was super chill. He taught us to play poker and blackjack. On the last day of school he said, "Remember, if you ever need anything or have any questions while you're at this school, there are about 50 other teachers you should go to before you come to me." My geometry teacher was too busy getting poked by my history teacher to care about us. I went from honors to support. My geometry teacher was getting busy with our English teacher. Lol. What is it with geometry teachers? Lol. He said with rage, "You used to be one of the good ones." A teacher said this to me, but instead he said with a tinge of sadness, "I would reconsider the direction change I've made, but who am I? I just got called out for not being in because no one ever noticed me." Did he say this after he chopped off your legs and left you to die on Mustafa? You were the chosen one. Anakin. I took Latin all 4 years of high school. I quickly realized I despised the language, but I stuck with it for the teacher himself. He alone was worth it. Our Latin class was right above the hallway with classrooms for special needs kids. One day, after it was apparent nobody did their homework, my teacher stopped class and said, "You're all taking what you have for granted, and it's inexcusable. There are several dozen kids in the hallway below you who wish they had the mental faculties to do homework." I did my Latin homework regularly. After he said that, "What about the other kids in your class? Did they also start doing their homework?" Like, what was the general reaction to that statement? I think most things that stick do so, because the listener was in the perfect mindset. It's not so much about the words themselves. The words are a simple key that unlock a box you didn't know you had. My middle school drama class was next door to the extremely special needs kids class. We had drama for 6 weeks during each of the 3 years we were there. Our teacher took every class next door for just 1 day each year to help and play with the kids. It was one of the most meaningful things I was ever exposed to as a student, and at a time when kids are especially self-centered. After being caught smoking pot in high school, 1986, my science teacher, "Hi Mr. Fishbean," said to me, "There is a time and place for everything. This is not the time, nor the place." He did not report me to administration. He was a great teacher. Professor Oak said the same thing when I tried to fish in the Pokemon Center or ride a bike inside. His name means fish leg. Had a history teacher who told me that everything is relative. You can only be poor if someone next to you is rich. You're only stupid if someone next to you is smart. It helps to put things into perspective and realize how superficial a lot of things are in life. That being said, he also randomly told me that wolves are baddest dogs that don't give a when we were not talking about wolves or dogs in class, so who knows what was really going on in his head. I had a maths teacher who was an older woman, really strict, and nobody particularly liked her. We mocked her way of speaking and were generally mean teenage a-holes. Once, when I was around 15, I hadn't finished my homework, so I dropped my book in a puddle and showed it to her in class to say I'd lost the homework so couldn't hand it in. She questioned me a bit on how it had happened, then asked me to stay after class. The whole lesson I was shitting myself, expecting to be absolutely bar locked once everyone else had gone. So when the bell rang I sheepishly went up and sat at her desk after everyone had left. To my surprise, she didn't shout at me, but gently asked if I was being bullied and somebody had taken my workbook and ruined it on purpose. I was a little skinny kid with glasses and braces, so I can see why she would have thought that. But in that moment I suddenly saw her as a human being with feelings and empathy, and not just a teacher. I felt like for the way I had treated her, and for lying about what had happened. I never admitted it to her, just reassured her that I was fine. But it did stick with me, and I was much less of a dick to teachers after that. This reminds me of a similar thing that happened to me at around the same age that I still cringe about sometimes. I was several weeks into a course in high school. I still hadn't bought the textbook. When the teacher found out I didn't have the book, she took me aside and asked why. Being a dumb teenager, without thinking I gave her some lame excuse about the book being too expensive. My family was solidly middle class, and although not rich, my parents definitely would have bought the book for me. The real reason was just that I was lazy. But my teacher looked sincerely concerned and quietly handed me a $20 bill. I was caught off guard and mortified. Of course, I did buy the book right away after that, and then later that year returned the $20 to the teacher. I always struck by the generosity of a teacher who would do that for her students. But I felt awful about how what I thought was an innocent lie turned out. Definitely a valuable lesson in honesty. Lol. There are only two kinds of people who can really stick it out as a teacher. Ones who care about children, and ones who need to be the most powerful person in the room to feel alive. To varying degrees, of course, but I feel there is little in between. I wonder if maybe she was bullied when she was younger and that's what made her so strict and blunt, and then so empathetic once she saw someone who might be in trouble. I had a teacher who I suspect this of. He was a big guy with a beard and put on a tough guy persona, but was super smart too and taught math. When I first had him, I was part of the athletic/jock crowd and he really seemed to have it out for me. Over my next few years in high school I gradually moved into a more academic crowd and made being in the school band more of a priority for me. I still played sports, but I wasn't known for that anymore. When he found out I was in the school band he started treating me way differently. In my senior year we had a dinner at school. There was a very long queue for the desserts, so I went and asked a history teacher where it started, because I couldn't find it. It was pretty chaotic. The teacher proceeded to put an arm around me, walk me to the desserts table, and say, "Ray my boy, F the Q, RAYMYBOY, me boy SFIQUEUES." If you listen closely, you can hear the sound of 60 million Brits gasping in indignation. God, I want a name like Ray. Such a kicker's name. Bush the Bush there. Mr. Bird 2005. One time one of my elective classes was just kind of chilling out the day before winter break and the teacher decided to arrange all our desks in a circle. He had everyone anonymously write something that was troubling them at the moment and he would go through and give some advice. I wrote about my parents' constant fighting and how I feared their inevitable divorce and the possibility of moving across country with my mother. I wish I could remember what he said, but I vividly remember almost crying because what he said hit so hard that I kept it together. Less than a month later, both things happened. LMAO. They may forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. What do they call someone who graduated vet school with a 2.0 GPA? Doctor, my first term anatomy professor in vet school, telling us to stop fretting so much about the grades and worry about the knowledge. My anatomy teacher was a cool dude. He'd give us little tidbits of advice before each test, ranging from always put your shopping cart away to you don't have to be 100% okay 100% of the time. And that's 100% okay 100% of the time. He's definitely one of the best teachers I've had. Being wise is better than being smart. I held on to that right up till receiving my PhD. Now that I'm entrenched in the corporate world of merciless exploitation, I've realized being smart about life is really a subset of being wise. There's no benefit to being right if you can't make people listen to the answer. My science teacher told me something similar. The point of arguing is not to prove that you are right, but to convince the other person that you are right. I had a 9th grade earth science teacher who actually had a PhD in biology. He told us that he had made his was through school by writing things he had to learn on 3x5 note cards and would pull them out of his pocket when he had a few minutes to learn/memorize the material he had written on them. I used that technique from then on all the way through my own PhD when I had something important to understand or commit to memory. This is called distributed practice and is one of the most effective learning methods. It is best to study for short periods over several days than for the same amount of time in one day. In 8th grade, a friend and I used to jokingly sling insults at each other, and one day he retorted that I was a cheap whore. Apparently our science teacher overheard and decided to chime in and defend me by shouting "You're not cheap" in front of the entire class. Apparently someone told the principal, and I had to explain that I had no idea what he meant. Nothing had happened. I'm absolutely not an 8th grade prostitute, etc. Still have no idea what he meant by it or why he decided to contribute in that way, but it was super awkward and it stuck with me. He was telling you are not a cheap person, you are precious. Or he was telling you that you are not cheap, but expensive one. Nothing is hard but nothing is easy. My sushi chef. I had a chemistry teacher in high school who was a bit of a hothead. One day, when two kids were talking in class, he stopped. Everyone expected a quick but firm correction. What we'd got was so much better. Our teacher stopped and calmly turned towards the class and said, "Do you hear that?" He walked towards the window at the back of the class. Everyone sat stone quiet. He leaned towards the window. "Do you hear it?" Faint laughter. It's 5 million Chinese children laughing quietly because they are taking your jobs. Then he just walked back to the front of the class and started teaching again. No one talked. I loved stories, but was slow to pick up reading. Once it clicked, I was at the top of my class until I graduated high school. I have a baby CM now. In primary school I wanted to go to a book fair called Voices in the Coast. I was shot down instantly. A year before that, because I was bad at reading, spelling was also hard. My 5th grade teacher made everyone stand up depending on what they got right on a spelling test. I was the only one to get all of them wrong. He made me stand in front of the class. If you ever see this, F you Mr. Burns from CSS 2003. I had a homeroom teacher that out of frustration one day ranted about how easy school was. He said, "We literally give you a book or the text, tell you to read it, then ask you to answer questions, the answers to which are found in the book we gave you. It doesn't get any easier than that. Read the damn books, answer the damn questions. That's all school is." I like that last sentence. It's really 3 sentences in one. Whoever threw that paper, your mom's a hoe. Read this in Mr. Fina's voice. Seeing the Matthews backyard. Eric is hiding in the bushes and has twigs sticking out of his hair. Mr. Feeney, while watering his hydrangeas. Mr. Matthews, you know I can see you. Eric's head pops out of the bushes. Eric, fee-hee-hee-hee-nigh. Mr. Feeney, Mr. Matthews, about that paper that hit me in the back of the head in the hallway today. I have reason to believe that you were the perpetrator. Am I correct? Eric, I don't know what you're talking about. That was Holly. Holly threw it. Mr. Feeney, Mr. Matthews, your name was written on the paper. It said to Feeney. From Eric Matthews. Audience laughs raucously. Enter Corey, Topanga, and Sean. Topanga, what's going on here? Mr. Feeney, Mr. Feeney. Oh, hello Miss Lawrence. Mr. Matthews, Mr. Hunter. I was just talking to Eric here about that piece of paper that was thrown at me in the hallways this afternoon. Sean, it wasn't me, I swear. Mr. Feeney, calm down. Mr. Hunter, I know it was Eric. I was just about to explain something to him, but I'm glad the 3 of you are here to hear it too, because I believe it will be a good lesson for all of you. To Eric, Mr. Matthews, you're young. I want you to know that you will make mistakes in life. Mistakes made of ignorance or bravado. You will hopefully learn from them and become a better person. Because the biggest mistake you can make in life is forgetting to learn as you grow older. That's a mistake I fear your parents have made. They have failed in raising you. They have learned nothing from your countless missteps. Your father is too busy at his supermarket and waking up young Corey at midnight to watch the Phillies. And as for your dear mother Amy, well, I fear she is a hoe. question everyone and everything. Conduct your own research to find the truth. I actually had a teacher that repeated this as well, and I took it to heart. Unfortunately, he was a flat-earthed and was just saying it as justification. You're the worst guitarist. I was a beginner at that time. Still hate her. You'll never achieve anything. First grade, we were doing a math lesson. The lesson was something about drawing a circle around groups of 5 or 10 things in a picture. Then we had to count the number of things in the picture and raise our hand when we were done. I figured out pretty quickly that counting the things one by one took too much time, so I counted by tens, which were already circled, then counted the leftovers, and put up my hand. I was done way before anyone else. The teacher looked at me and said something like, "There is no way you could have counted them all." So I put my hand down and made sure I was not the first one to put my hand up first during that lesson. A few minutes later, she complimented another kid who had counted quickly and said that he was probably counting by fives and demonstrated how to do that. I was so angry and thought it was stupid to count by fives when it's easier to count by tens, so why not just do that? The thing is, this woman was usually a pretty good teacher. I don't know if she just didn't like me or was having a rough day or what, but I learned that day that teachers don't know everything, and sometimes they are just mean. If you want to work at a McDonald's, that's up to you. If you want to work somewhere else, that's also up to you. Said to me after I scored on a test he knew I could do better at. I work in the space industry now. Thanks, Mr. Teacher. They have McDonald's in the space industry now. You have an accent. Your skin is brown. Your whole life will be filled with people who will assume this means you are not as smart or as good as they are at literally anything. That's why I push you. That's why I demand more from you. You have to work harder now, so you can prove them all wrong for the rest of your life. Miss Johnson, 9th grade English teacher. You'd do so much better in life if you gave a F. Said to me by one of the English teachers in my high school a week before I graduated. This was during a conversation about what I wanted to do post high school, and I said something along the lines of, "I don't know, get a job or something." After years of hearing about my creative writing ability and even showing it during his classes, he'd honestly given up on me. But hey, I'm sure I wasn't the last kid to let him down. My English teacher told me during my graduation that he wanted to read something that I had written, as he said I had the talent. It's something I think about daily as I find myself stuck in a profession that is not right for me, and I write as a hobby. You're going to succeed in life and do extraordinary things. I have not succeeded, not done anything extraordinary other than live when I didn't want to. I feel like kids in the advanced programs got put on such high pedestals when we were kids that once we got to college and in the real world we were in shock with how effed we were. I finished school with the lowest grades possible. If this idiot could do it, all you idiots can do it, till the whole class cheered. My art teacher told me I couldn't draw. Fast forward 15 years and I've graduated university with a fine art degree and have my own small illustration business as a side gig. It's not a huge thing, but I've had over 150 sales now and have like actual fans. So, screw you, Miss H. My art teacher also told me I couldn't draw. Yesterday I tried to draw a tree and got so frustrated I had to lay down and count to 10. You were right, Mr. Sarks. I can't draw. Knowledge is power. Francis Bacon. My science teacher said that he liked watching Shakira and J-Lo jiggle their butts. Truly a man of science. If he determined the frequency of the butt wiggle and plotted it on a graph over time demonstrating the variance in the butt wiggle frequency, it'd be even more CNC.